So the first job I ever had was working at a little old store called Market. I worked there for a summer because it was not a fun time. But to explain this tragedy, I have to start from the beginning. I was looking for a job, so I applied to about 40 different places. I should mention that the ideal part-time minimum wage service job I was looking for was anything but cashier. Decided to call me. The lady on the phone told me there were a couple open positions. The grocery section, sales associate, stalker, and cashier, and that I would interview for all of them. I would have said no, but 3 months had gone by and I still hadn't found a job, and now was not the time to be picky. So I go to the interview wearing my best outfit, I sit down and the interviewer goes, "So, I see you applied for the general cashier position." And in my mind I was like, I did no such thing. But on the outside I was like, yep, that is a very accurate statement. I did indeed do that, and I was aware of it all along. I ended up acing my interview, not to brag. I got hired on the spot, and I thought I did so well, hired on the spot, so cool. I went the same day to get my red shirt and khaki pants. So I waited for a call for orientation. About 2 weeks passed by. I'm asleep, and all of a sudden... "Hello, is this Selena? Would you come in for an orientation at 10? "Sure, absolutely." I rushed to wash my hair, eat my breakfast, and get myself together. Orientation, and I was really nervous for some reason, and I had to pee for the entire first 2 hours, but thank the Lord, at one point, HR asked if we needed to use the restroom. We ended up running out of time during orientation for some reason, so they couldn't show us a lot of the functions on the register, and that wasn't very helpful. One of the leads that were working there just kind of showed us a bunch of different buttons, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you just press this button, this one, and then this one, and that does that. Pretty easy, right?" Wrong! I was so confused! So at the end of orientation, HR was like, "Alright, I'm gonna call you guys just to let you know when you're gonna start training," and everyone was like, "Alright, sounds good, everything's chill." So I go about living my life. About 2 weeks have passed by, still haven't been called for training, but I'm like, oh, maybe they're just busy. 3 weeks go by, and I still haven't been called to go for training. And at this point, I was going to go on a little trip to Las Vegas. So I thought, you know what, maybe they'll call afterwards. But of course this had to happen. About 2 days into my trip, I get a call. "Just double checking, you're going to come in tomorrow for your first day of training, right?" "I can't come in tomorrow because I'm out of town right now." "Out of town? Why would you be out of town if you're having training tomorrow?" "I didn't know that I was going to come in for training tomorrow because you hadn't called me yet about training." You were supposed to look at the schedule." "Well, now I have to reschedule someone else for your training shift." And I was like, what are you talking about, lady? You told me that you were going to call me for training, but you never called me, so what is this?" Or at least that's what I wanted to say. On the outside, I was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I was so angry and so confused and stressed out about this whole situation. So I come in for my first day, and I'm really, really nervous. I don't even think I ate that morning because I was so nervous. I was just so confused about the whole process and how everything worked. I even called the day before to ask questions like, where do I walk in from, and who do I report to is the first thing. I was just really confused. So I go to training, and thankfully my trainer was actually really, really sweet. The only downside is that they were all liars. You see, when I interviewed with one of the managers, he had reassured me, "We know this is your first job. There's nothing to worry about. You're going to be training for a few days. You'll be shadowing. We're not going to put you out there until you're really comfortable. We're not just going to throw you like a fish in a water or something like that." But they lied to me because when I was interviewed, the person had told me that training was going to be like I was going to shadow someone for a few days, and then I was going to be on the register and they would shadow me, and they weren't going to put me all by myself until I was ready. But that was a complete lie because right on my first day, I shadowed another person for about 3 transactions, and then I did, I think, 1 transaction, and then all of a sudden the lead comes over and they're like, "Oh, are you comfortable? Because we're getting kind of busy and we need you to go on your own lane." So they put me on my own lane within like a half an hour of my first day, and this was my first job. So I go all by myself, the customer comes and I greet them, and I just froze. I didn't even know what was the first button that I was supposed to press. I ended up having to flash my light to have the manager come and help me because I just didn't know what I was doing. A couple weeks have gone by, and despite not being able to eat at all before work, I was starting to get a little more comfortable because I was learning how to use the different functions on the register. And one day I was standing, and one of my coworkers, he asked how I liked working here. And I was like, oh, it's all right. I'm still kind of nervous because I just started working here. How do you like working here? Oh, I absolutely hate it. Well, why do you hate it? Managers are always behind our backs, pushing for red cards, and in my mind I was like, I don't know what this guy is talking about because they've never pushed me before. Little did I know what was gonna come. So every day after I clocked in for work, I would go to the leads and they would tell me which register to go on. And at that time they would also tell me how many red cards that we had made in the day and how many that we still needed. And if you're not familiar, cashiers have to sell these things called red cards. Basically, there's a debit card, a credit card, and you pitch them to the customers to try to get them to sign up. Now here's the thing. I already knew from the get-go that I was going to be having to do this, but the level of how I had to do it, I was not prepared for. A lot of times, this would happen. Hi, and would you like to sign up for a red card? You could save 5% off every time. Oh no, thank you. I don't like credit cards. Oh, well, we also have a debit card. Oh no, I don't really want any cards. I don't really shop here at all. Okay, no problem. I know they said no, but you need to keep talking about it. And the part that made me the most angriest is only some of the managers and leads cared if you got red cards. Some of them would praise you, get you Starbucks, but one time I had worked a closing shift and I got like 3 red cards and literally no one cared. So what even is the point? Every time I tried to bring up the red card, they either already had one or they just really, really didn't want one. And I was not about to argue with them because I do not want to make them angry. And you should see the look on customers' face. Everything's good, everything's dandy, everyone's friendly, and the second I bring up the red card, their entire expressions completely change. I also should have saw this coming, but I worked in the city right next to the city that I grew up in, and I didn't realize how many classmates and former teachers I would see. Now granted, one of my teachers did come into my lane, but he was cool, so it was alright, good to see him. One time this lady came in, and I had seen her a couple times in the store, and she looked so familiar, and I just knew that I knew her, and she was like this Asian middle-aged woman, so I was like, oh, it has to be one of my mom's friends. She came into my lane and I said, oh, hey, I think you know my mom. And she was like, what's your mom's name? And I told her name and she was like, oh, I don't think I know anyone with that name. And I was like, oh, shoot. Are you a teacher? Turns out she taught at the high school that I went to, and I still wasn't sure who she was. She just looked really familiar, and I had asked her, and she told me her name, and I was like, oh, that's the teacher no one likes. I never saw her again. Not to mention all the people who would put items on the belt and tell me the price. This is $2.99. Ma'am, it rings up as $10.99. Oh no, it's $2.99. Like, if you have to tell me the price of the object, that is not the price of the object. And every time that would happen, I would flash my light over, a lead or a manager would come over, and they would say, oh, just change the price. Change the price? You're gonna lose your money if I keep changing the price. And one of them even got mad at me for calling them over to ask if I could change the price. And they were like, just change the price. But just... Now, I have a ton of crazy stories with different customers, but that's gotta be like another video because it would just be way too long. So basically, how the job would work is you had a 90-day probation period, and the rule was that within the 90 days, they couldn't fire you because they really wanted to work with you and try to get you to improve before they would just fire you. But during that time, I got pulled into my manager's office a couple times asking me how red card sales were going, how my pitch was going. And the truth is, at the end of the day, I just didn't want to do it. It wasn't like I couldn't do it, I just didn't want to do it. And one day my manager said, well, you see, you need to be getting like 1 a day. And so if you're not really doing that, then your job is going to be in jeopardy. And what I took that as was, if you're not getting 1 a day, I'm about to fire you. So guess what I did? I quit before they could fire me.